Hello, 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 everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Janelle McGregor, and we want to thank you for joining us today for our fourth episode of Real Talk on Rona. This episode is being brought to you by the City of Tampa, Tampa Family Health Centers, the Florida Department of Health, and Hillsborough County. I'm here today with my co host, Melissa Garita, who serves as the marketing director for Tampa Family Health Centers. She is going to introduce us to our guest speaker today, behavior specialist Kristen Reed, who will be telling us how to look for signs of mental stress in children and what we as parents and caregivers can do to help our children cope with life during and after the pandemic. Hey, Melissa, how are you today?
Hi, Janelle. Doing well. Just wanted to give a little introduction on Miss Reed. Miss Reed was born in Kansas City, Missouri. She started babysitting at a young age and immediately fell in love with children and families. She graduated from the University of Kansas with a double major in psychology and English literature. Still wanting to work with children and families, she pursued her lifelong goal of attending graduate school at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. She received her master's degree in social work and continued with her studies to earn a specialization in family therapy. She received her license in clinical practice and began working at Epworth Children's Home, where she held the position of the supervisor for the adolescent group Home for Girls. Within a year, she was appointed to the position of director of the group home, as well as community-based in-home therapeutic services for families. With her education experiences, Miss Reed has held different roles, such as director at Child Haven, director of a residential treatment center for adolescents, and conducted outpatient therapy for people of all ages at the Ozark Guidance Center. Upon starting a family of her own in Tampa, Florida, she left community-based services to start her private practice, which included serving as the mental health and behavioral health specialist for families, schools, and businesses. In 2016, she learned of Tampa Family Health Centers and began following their growth in the community. Wanting to return to a community-based organization, she accepted a job with Tampa Family Health Centers in 2018, where she continues to be committed to improving the quality of mental health services and accessibility to all people. She provides outpatient behavioral health care services for children, individuals, and families throughout Hillsborough County. Since then, she has earned specialties in the treatment of personality disorders, grief therapy, and addiction. It is with great pleasure I introduce you Ms. Kristen Reed. Ms. Reed?
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Janelle, for having me. I'd like to also thank the City of Tampa, Tampa Family Health Centers, and Florida Health, along with Hillsborough County, for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Tampa Family and address families in our community. I began working at Tampa Family because it gave me the opportunity to work within a multidisciplinary team of professionals who are all working towards the same goal of improving the quality of the community through improving the quality of each person's individual life. Earlier this week, Dr. Ryder and Dr. McPhee have spoken about COVID-19 and the coronavirus from a medical standpoint, so today I'm going to talk about it from a mental health perspective. Explaining the virus from a systemic point of view and how it is impacting our families is crucial in order to understand why we may be reacting to it the way we are. Everybody really was thrown into a loop when the quarantine happened and the stay-at-home orders, because we lost our freedom of choice. We might not have been going anywhere anyway, but the fact that we were told we couldn't really was a struggle for people, because it just felt like our choices and our freedom of independence had been taken away. Quarantine then really neutralized everybody. Everybody was on the same page. Everybody was dealing with the same thing. Everybody could relate. There was nothing anybody could do about it, which typically is a very safe place to be, especially if you're one to feel compelled that you need to run out and fix something or affect something. You couldn't. The transition time between the quarantine and the full re-engagement will be the hardest on people to deal with who have pre-existing mental health conditions. but it will be hard for everyone, and people will be experiencing perhaps levels of anxiety or depression with which they have had no experience. Again, the pandemic neutralized society because it held us all to the same rules. When everyone is fully re-engaged in society and the pandemic is considered to be completely over, everyone will be back in their natural environment. People will find their places again, but it is this transition that has the potential to cause emotional stress on people because they do not know how to compensate for or how to accommodate for it, along with the other stressors they're facing, not even to mention the unknowns with which they're faced. If you have, or if you know someone who has a pre-existing mental health issue, or if they are particularly sensitive to socio-dynamic changes, this is going to be a very valuable bit of information for you to hear, because certainly we want you to use it, but please pass it along if you feel that it's applicable to anyone in your circle. Again, this might sound a little redundant, but I can't make the point enough. In general, people do much better with structure, predictability, and routine. It not only defines them and where they understand their place in society to be, it helps them understand the people around them. The quarantine and the full re-engagement into society, workforce, school, etc., offer those structures. The middle gray area between the two ends does not. How we operated as a family pre-coronavirus could be very different than how we will operate post-coronavirus. The transition between the two normals, because even this quarantine has become normal, is where many people could experience an intense stress with regard to the adjustment. And it's very important to remember this is just an adjustment as you go through anything. Just like the quarantine didn't define us or value us or qualify us, neither does the transition time between the two. It's very important to know that this is an adjustment and to be reminding each other of that, especially our kids. This too shall pass. It's not so much the paralysis of the virus that scared us, nor is it the fear of the new, so to speak, functionality of the community, because both are structural. We know what to do within those structures. Even if we don't know what we're going into, there will be a structure we can adapt. So we're going to continue to talk about the transition between the two because it is undefined. And for that matter, every family will be able to redefine what is pre-coronavirus for them and what marks post-coronavirus. And within there's a healthy norm. All right, getting back to our daily lives and reintegrating. We've been out of practice, right? We might have forgotten. Personally, I think we should have always been standing 6 feet apart. I think there always should have been X's between people at the grocery store. It's common courtesy. Hopefully, those are the things that we had to step back to be reminded of moving forward to practice. I hope those things don't go out of use because they do keep the boundaries in place, which I think are very important in a lot of other ways. Parents will return to previous jobs that might have different expectations as a result, or find a new job altogether. Some who used to be busy may not have a schedule to return to, and others may have to return to a more intensified work environment to make up for lost time. This is just as true for kids as adults. And when I speak of kids, I'm speaking of children ages 3 and up. 1 to 2-year-olds are a little more unaware. As long as their home remains in the routine, they're pretty good. They're not going to get hiccuped by it. But 3 and older, they start to think more conceptually, and they're more in tune with the abstract. Maybe even if all things had stayed equal, people would still be making normal transitions, perhaps different grades level, hitting a milestone, entering a different level of softball team, what have you, going through a graduation ceremony. But since the pandemic, we can no longer look at anything as normal or routine. Nothing is as it was, and I think sometimes that's a really good thing. And things will be different, which gives us opportunities. And that's what I want to focus on also today is, yes, while there are some people that will struggle with the end of something, if we can let go of the things of the past, we open up our arms to embrace the future. There will be changes in sports, summer camps, graduations, and proms. There will be complicated feelings around missing these things and having to adjust simply because we were told we couldn't do something even if we didn't want to go to the prom or what have you, because there's a little bit of tradition in not wanting to go to the prom, but you go anyway, right? That's part of it, is complaining about the cost and the dress and the boutonniere and all that. So anyway, birthdays will look different this year too. Not only are all of us having to learn to cooperate again, co-function, reintroduce ourselves to each other in a way, re-socialize after being isolated for so long, but we must find our motivations for doing so, or ask ourselves, why wouldn't I? Why am I not motivated? What do I need to get motivated? The ultimate answer to that is going to be, what's the carrot on the other end? So we have to find reasons that motivate people based on past successes that they've had and changes that they've been through that they once thought were life-threatening, not to mention life-changing, that they made it through successfully and look back and are very thankful for those opportunities. With regard to children, be as clear as possible when you're explaining a situation that is going on. Use age-appropriate explanation, and if a child of any age asks you a question to which you do not know the answer, do your best to avoid the gray and make it clear by assuring the child that although you don't know the answer to the question either, you will find out by asking the person who does. Very often, kids aren't looking for the exact answer. They're looking for reassurance that there is an answer. They're not looking for definites to come their way right then and there. They're just wanting to know that their future is definite. There's a big difference. And the way in which we respond is so much more important than the actual answer that we give, because they want to know they have the unconditional support of their parents. Because remember, as adults, we have a file for this. We can go back in time and we can say, oh, something similar happened here and there, and this is what happened. Children don't have a file for that. This is their first time out, and they're having to do it at the same time they're having to learn it. Rather than use if to assure a child of a certainties that you do know for a fact are reliable, you just may not know the specifics, exchange the word regardless for the word if. Regardless, if there is no end of the year party at school, we can still have your friends over at our house to celebrate this summer. Regardless, if there's no formal ceremony at school for your graduation, we could still invite your friends over and have everybody walk down the steps, and Dad could give them their diploma, to which the kids will say, Mother, no, but you've got to throw it out there. They're going to want ideas. Yes, I have a teenager, could you tell? Okay, let's see. Focusing on the certainties by explaining to kids that they get to start fresh. They get to reintroduce themselves. They get to know people again, learn to trust each other. The things that they learn during this time that aren't even school related are important, like their place in the community, how you handle problems, the fun things that they discovered while having the freedom to be creative and discover. Look for signs of mental stress. Let's get back to that for a moment. Children will often show their anxiety about leaving the stability or steadiness of their home and re-entering school because school has now become an unfamiliar place in their minds. Their anxiety will manifest manifest itself through demonstrations of negativity, resistance, and possible rejection of school by refusing to acknowledge their friends, by suddenly, quote, hating their teachers, hating their friends, hating their school, etc. I want to make a note here. Teenagers especially will show these signs as well, but teenagers, particularly from the age of 12 to 17, are much more likely to eat in excess or not eat. Their eating patterns, their eating habits will look very, very different. They'll be eating very late at night. They'll want snack food. They'll want comfort food. Super important to not drop the ball on nutrition here because, as we know, physical and mental health are related. You will also likely see a change in sleep pattern from ages 12 to 17. More excessive sleep, sleeping during the day, wide awake at night. Check in with your child. Given the age, ask them, are you feeling depressed? Why are you sleeping so much? Why are you eating? Again, what's going on with you? They'll tell you. They're usually waiting to be asked. Children are smart. They deserve to be respected, and they deserve to be heard, because when they don't is when you're going to see more behaviors, and we don't want that. Everybody's valid. Everybody's extremely important to the family. Having said that, about the way it can manifest itself, I simply didn't bring up little ones because parents tend to exercise a little bit more control over the kids' meals and the kids' snacks. Validate your child's feelings. Gently remind the child of all ages of the success they have had at school before and the value that they themselves bring to the classroom. They will be far more worried about their place in school and in the social groups than they're worried about where their friends fit in. They're sure that they're the ones that aren't going to fit in. So we want to remind them that that is a fear, not a reality. We want to acknowledge their fear, but we also want to get them thinking along with the past victories they've had at school. You may notice them verbalizing worries, repeatedly asking the same questions, especially fidgeting with their fingers, their hair, and their lips, which, while it crosses all ages, does seem to be more concentrated in the ages of like 3 to 7. So you can ask them, I've really noticed you're fidgeting with your lips. You okay? When you know that they fidget with their hair as anxiety, you can go up to them and you can say, you're fidgeting with your hair. I know that means you're nervous. You want to talk? Let them keep fidgeting with their hair. That's their coping skill. Let them keep fidgeting with their lip. Don't take that away until you have established a degree of comfort with them and what you're talking about or what you're doing to distract them. That's the comfort skill they have. That's the one they're relying on. They probably don't even know they're doing it. So let's not bring attention to it because we don't want them to be self-conscious about that. So we ask ourselves why we need to acclimate ourselves to the transition and how. Now, I want to make another note here. With regard to the teens, keep them on as regular of a schedule as possible. This goes for any school-aged student. In addition to keeping them accountable to school work, add age-appropriate chores into the mix. Let them know that not only are they a student, they have a very important role in the house, and everybody has their own job in the house. Also, be sure to reward them. If there's some reward, if there's something they get to do after they've cleaned the dishes, they get to play their Xbox game for a little bit, make sure you follow through with that. Having them participate in the function of the family will do wonders for their self-esteem. If they want to serve you hot dogs with Cheerios on top and mustard, please eat it, and please act like it's the best thing you've ever tasted, because we're working with confidence here. We're really trying to get them really feeling confident about the upcoming school year or to wherever they're returning. Why and how we face financial, social, emotional, psychological, and physical problems is one of the best determining factors to how effectively we will make it to and fully functioning in the new ways of life. Remember, our kids are relying on us. They've never been through this before, so they're looking at us for direction. How we teach our children to handle this is of equal importance to our own being adults. survival, if you will, and success. So to revisit the question of why and how we are facing our new problems for which we have no experience or practice is specific to each family, individual, and child. Let's address the how. This is how you can reduce a child of any age anxiety. This also is very effective with adults, but for our purposes, again, Dr. McPhee and Dr. Ryder spoke to adults. I'm just having a little more narrow scope of children. Validate their feelings. When you nurture, you receive nurturing. It really does work both ways. You hear yourself say those nurturing, reassuring words, and you benefit from it as well. Acknowledge each of your children's feelings. If you have 7 children, acknowledge each one differently because they're all having a very different experience, even though the structure is still the same. Ask them age-appropriate questions about their feelings and how they felt before the pandemic. Maybe the pandemic didn't start for them at the same time it started for you. Maybe they were out of school before you had to leave your job. Get their perspectives. Start talking to them. Let them know that their experience is something you not only want to know, but you want to learn from. Ask them how they expect to feel afterwards compared to how they feel now. Kids thrive off of this reinforcement just as adults do. Kids need to imagine and fantasize. Let them make up a story and tell you about the pandemic as if they were writing a Disney book or coloring a picture about it. You can always do all sorts of interventions that allow them their creativity side to express themselves. Not everything has to be sitting and talking. Tell them things they must look forward to in the summer and upcoming school year. Get them excited. Give them hope. Hope will equal empowerment. These things may look different than they once did, but they will still be very exciting. Again, remember, it's not the point of what we're doing, the exact agenda or the exact party. It's going to go like this. It's usually just the reassurance that things are going to get back to what they enjoyed. Okay, let's see. Talk about the new normal, what it'll look like for each child in your family, each member of your household. What will it consist of? Have open and honest discussions with children about what is happening. Of course, you want to express to them things that you're dealing with that are upcoming for you, but we don't ever want to overburden a child. Know your boundaries when you speak to them. They just want to know everything is going to be okay and that you're going to be okay and you have a good attitude. They don't want to know anything else. Role play situations in order to prepare kids for the real thing, like going back into school, re-entering a team, a club, what have you. If possible, introduce your child to the teacher, the coach, etc., before school resumes. Give them opportunities in the summer to show compassion and strengthen their confidence by completing new chores or challenges, by helping someone they don't know, by taking their newspaper to the person's doormat while still practicing social distancing. Again, we can be in our familiar zone all day long, but the whole point is to also increase their confidence by saying, you don't even know that person and you took their paper up to the front door. That was very kind of you. Or when things get a little more familiar in the marketplace, they can say to someone behind them in the line at the grocery store, oh, you only have 2 items, I have 26, please go. The point is it socializes and it builds confidence. Not to mention it sends good vibes out there, right? We want to send good vibes. Okay. Engage them in conversations about how their lives have changed in a response to the pandemic. Engage them in a conversation that teaches them to evaluate situations and also the value situations have. This is the beginning of really teaching your child how to be a critical thinker. There are things that you need to give your child permission to say, you know what, some of these things really stunk. I really did not like this. I was very upset about this. I'm going to have a very hard time getting past this. Give them permission because it's very real. And also hanging on to that regret or that guilt if they have it, or that sadness about being left out of something, let them hang on to it appropriately, because it's the way they are staying connected to that time in their life. They'll move from it when they start to see something else evolve. They just always have to see second base before they take their foot off first, so to speak. So it's okay to have a very real conversation about it. The other thing that I have found to be very effective is unplug. Get out there with the kids. Garden. That's a wonderful life lesson. Planting seeds, having to demonstrate patience, waiting for things to grow. You can plant the exact same flowers in almost the exact same place. One blossoms and grows one way, the other goes another way. It talks about individuality. Make a scrapbook. Don't rely on your phone for pictures. This is for two reasons. It gives them something, it gives everybody something tangible to hold and say, this was that pandemic, instead of, oh, this was that pandemic. We already know we feel that way. We don't need to say it. But great attitudes are contagious. And by the way, it takes a lot fewer muscles to smile than it does to frown. Just throw that in there. So, don't frown. It's not good exercise either. Okay, so scrapbook. Make an actual photo album so the children anybody of all age can hold it. They can see it. They can touch it. The children will be proud of it. You would be amazed at what high schoolers and college students come up with about the way they see things. Let them put their scrapbooks together in their own way, and pay attention to the positioning of the pictures. That will tell you something. Teach them how to cook. The other benefit of this is you're giving them a victory, a point of success to which they can refer when they encounter something like this again. Now they've started a file. When they move forward and they have another episode of something, they can say, oh, I have a file for this. Let me recall how I handled this. And then there you go. They're halfway there already to adapting in a very functional, very healthy way. So this takes us to the why. Why are we going to be very careful about our re-engagement? Why are we going to pay close attention to our mental health while we're going through this? One of the obvious answers is because if I don't act in accordance with the new, I'll be left behind in some way. That's going to re-trigger everybody, because everybody already feels like things got cut off short. There was no closure. That's going to be the hardest thing to recover from in some ways for some people. So having as much closure as you can about the things that we left behind will be a very valuable topic of conversation. Talking about the importance of your value and being expected to get in and get with the program because you have a part in the classroom to keep the classroom moving will be very important too. Empower them. Keep them moving. Let them know that you have to rely on yourself. You want to be relevant. The quarantine made us all feel irrelevant. If we all put ourselves in a position to feel relevant and important, we're growing. We want everyone to know where they fit in the community and where they fit in the family. Remember, everything starts at home. So what is taught at home will then continue to grow and be shared at the school through their attitude, through their behavior, through their compassion. Encourage each member of the family to continue to be vulnerable about what they're experiencing in the transition and the reintegration. Socially, parts of us are withering. We need each other. We enjoy others. By others' leadership, we are inspired, and by others' mistakes, we learn. We need others. We need movement. Our senses need to be involved as much as possible. We want to make this time of reemergence a healthy rejection of anything that would victimize us and a healthy acceptance of change and opportunity. Therefore, that's where the tactile things come back in, and the senses and the listening and the hearing. You can turn something on the radio that you know your kids are not going to like, but yay, you liked it. You offered a difference in their day. Their days become too monotone. You can cook something that you know your kids will love. Have them try a new dish. Have everybody have a different day for when they cook a meal. Get all of their senses involved. Be creative. You look around your house, you can go on a treasure hunt in your own house. Dr. McPhee referred to taking a nature hike in your own backyard the other day. Great idea. It's a rainy day, even better. Dirt never hurt, rain dries. Also, you can take a treasure hunt in your house. You can kind of come under the kids' radar and say, help me find my watch that I lost, and boom, 2 birds, 1 stone. Okay, so moving on. Get moving. That's a nice segue into my next point here is get moving. When we move physically, mentally, socially, which includes also learning new things, we get moving emotionally. People can usually accept a little bit of failure, a little bit of, oh, gee, that didn't go as I planned, much more than they will accept being stationary. Get moving. Only stop once or twice to check in with your family members and your friends and your kids to ask yourselves why and how with regard to facing our challenges and about being excited and involved again for the purpose of refreshing the motives. Remember, you're going to want to kind of keep resorting back to the old way, and that includes coping skills too. If you encounter a degree of depression or anxiety, or you notice someone around you is, let them stick with their old coping skills if they're healthy and safe. If that worked for them, let them have it. When you notice that that's no longer effective because now they're trying to apply an old coping skill to a new situation, sit and learn with them together. There's no shame as a parent in pulling up Google and saying, let's see what Google says about relaxation techniques. Try different things. Ooh, let's stand on our head. We know it's fun. The blood rushes to our head. It also relieves anxiety because the blood is flowing. Just put something soft under your head. Of course, safety first. Lots of different things you can do. Going through things like this, not only as individuals, adults and kids, but especially within a family system, not only gives us something to focus on now besides what we don't have, it allows us to focus on what's coming, and we're usually much more excited about going somewhere, much more than actually arriving. So we want to keep the focus a little bit more on the journey. The other value that this has is we look back and we see that this showed us what we were made of. Really, we rose to the occasion. And again, it becomes a memory and it becomes a tool with which they can use to be successful in the future. One last thing. Remind yourself as you're going through the day. I know some of you are trying to work from home. I know sometimes that may be less challenging. It might be more challenging. You've got kids out there that are restless. I understand. If you could put everybody on an age-appropriate schedule that will allow them to predict what's going to happen that day, and then they will know. That takes a lot of those questions out of it and a lot of the anxiety out for the kids. It also reduces anxiety because they have something to look forward to. If you need to do an intermittent scheduling of chores followed by something they like, followed by something maybe they're not so excited about, followed by something they really like, that's the best way because it keeps it intermittent and it keeps it moving, so to speak. Nothing gets old or boring or stagnant. Play with the kids first. Get them out. First thing in the morning, play with them. Get them moving. You'll get a lot more out of them during the day once they've kind of let the energy out and they immediately feel that they have been addressed. The other thing is they're going to feel what you feel. That's normal. You're human. I would never tell you to pretend that you weren't human. If you struggle, struggle. If you cannot move from your desk or you cannot stop what you're doing or you just have to sit down for a minute and close your eyes, it's perfectly okay to say to your child, please let me sit down for a moment, or you know what? It's very important I finish this call. I will be with you the moment I'm off. Because number one, what you're doing is you're reassuring their insecurities. Number two, you're modeling for them excellent coping and communication skills. Number three, you're de-escalating yourself. Absolutely, every single time without fail, be sure that when you say you're going to do something, follow through. That establishes trust and maintains the trust in the relationships.
All All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Reed, for filling us in on such an important topic. We do have a couple questions that came in. Our first question is, how do I calm my child if they're experiencing symptoms of stress?
The first thing that would be the most effective is pinpoint how they're demonstrating the stress through eating, through sleeping, through fidgeting, through temper tantrums. Go over, depending on the age of the child, ask them how they're feeling. Give them the words to choose from. Maybe they don't know the language. They don't know the verbiage, the vocabulary. The second thing to do is ask them, what would you like to be happening right now? What would you rather be doing? What do you wish was happening right now? And work from there. Okay, we can't do that, but we can do this. And remember, work with contingencies, not if you're good or if you let me finish this call. It's when I am finished here, then we will go on our nature hike as Dr. McPhee recommended.
Thank you. A listener sent in the following question. As a parent, I'm under a lot of stress. How do I avoid passing that stress on to my child?
That's a great question. I get asked that a lot. In addition to the things we've talked about today, show your child ways that they can change their body temperature. That's a very effective intervention when you're feeling anxious or depressed. Have a very cold glass of ice water. Have a very warm cup of tea. Explain to your child the warmness of this beverage is very soothing. Oh, I need a cold drink. That will kind of wake up my system. Will you put ice in my cup? How many ice cubes should we put in our cup? Do you want the red cup or the yellow cup? So number one, you've addressed their insecurities, you have validated their feelings, and you've, in a very functional way, distracted them while meeting their needs.
Thank you so much. So now, what about people who may not have insurance? Is there therapy available for those individuals and their children?
Yes, ma'am, there is. Speaking on behalf of Tampa Family Health Center, because I can speak with firsthand knowledge, there are many resources available that will help you have access to the care. There are many different ways that we can do that, and I would encourage you to call our centers to find out exactly how, because they are on an individual basis. We don't have an umbrella answer or a blanket solution. We like to treat individuals and individual families according to their specific needs.
So now, can you tell us what a typical therapy session looks like for those of us who may not know?
Speaking specifically with the way I manage my practice is it's very relaxed, but we work very hard. Depending on the age level, I will engage the child in play therapy, any kind of tactile therapy. I spend a lot of time jump roping out in the parking lot, I will tell you that, because kids need to be moving. It's very therapeutic. I'm always getting their senses involved, sitting on the floor. If a child comes in, sits on the floor, or kind of assumes a certain position, I'll usually mirror that to let them know that it's a very relaxed environment and there's no agenda. Most of the time, kids will then immediately engage in the talking and expressing their feelings. Depending on the age of the child, you may hear all about how their next door neighbor Sam got in trouble for eating a bug. That's validated, that's listened, they're encouraged. It's all about the connection and establishing a relationship. From there, we start to then address age-appropriate topics and ways to solve for those problems that are, number one, within their control and realistic and reasonable, and number two, I do invite the family in because I want it to be a supportive environment once they leave the session.
Thank you so much, Ms. Reed, for taking the time to educate us parents and caregivers about how to look for signs of mental health in our children, and understanding that the transition to this new normal can definitely be tough on them, especially for our graduating seniors. But the important advice you gave us is that this is an adjustment and it will pass, but we definitely have to be optimistic about what the future will hold. So thank you so much for sharing that information with us. This is Real
Thank
Talk
you for
on
having
Rona.
me.
You're very welcome. This is Real Talk on Rona, everyone, because the Rona is real, folks. If you haven't heard yet, the Emergency Policy Group, which is made up of local elected officials, just recently changed the criteria for testing so that everyone, regardless of symptoms or if you've been around someone with COVID, now you can get tested. You don't need to show any symptoms. You don't have to be around someone who was previously tested positive for COVID. You can get tested. And this test is free. And they're encouraging everyone to go out there and get that COVID-19 test done. Research has shown that individuals who are asymptomatic or those who are not experiencing any symptoms or maybe even mild symptoms can still have the virus. So it's important for us to definitely know that. Now, where do you go for this testing? Hillsborough County has 2 testing sites up at Raymond James and at Lee Davis. It's free. You don't need insurance. All you need to do is call 813-272-5900 to schedule an appointment. Don't waste time, folks. Get out there, make that call, get an appointment so that you can get tested. This is a deadly virus, but it's also a very silent virus as well. So that's why we're encouraging all of you to get tested. We will get through this together. Thank you again so much, Ms. Reed, for joining us today. Everyone, don't forget to tune in on Friday, May 1st at 12 p.m. because we're going to talk about life after Rona. What will that be like? Well, you have to tune in to hear. Thanks again to Ms. Reed and the Tampa Family Health Center staff, along with our partners at the Florida Department of Health and Hillsborough County government for helping to make Real Talk on Rona possible. Stay calm, stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.